very important ceremony. And so with this said, I wish to continue with your indulgence to also acknowledge some very important dignitaries, or if you like, representatives, who are also here with us, representing various organizations, particularly funders, development organizations in this place. So we are very happy to have, a far range of organizations, including USAID, UNICEF, Global Affairs, Canada, and so on and so forth. The list is really, really tall. So, ladies and gentlemen, under this category, may I humbly acknowledge your presence. So let's wave at them who are over here with us. In addition to that, some are attending or joining us online. And so we take this opportunity to also acknowledge your presence, your attendance, this very, very important ceremony. Beyond that, we also have Friends of Saint. And by that, we acknowledge personalities such as Dr. Nancy Drost, Ni Afute Oche II, and I believe that he is Nana, and then he has come with Nanama Jambia. Forgive me of my accent. I apologize. And so let's acknowledge our traditional authority in this place. Furthermore, we wish to acknowledge Miss Margaret Ninsing. If she's here or online, please, you are duly acknowledged. We also acknowledge Dr. Charles Otibwating, Mr. Tony Dogbe, Pastor Nana Kofi Akwa, who led us in the opening prayer session. We also acknowledge Mr. Collier Kamara. If you are joining us also via online, we want to acknowledge your kind friendship and support that has contributed towards taking this organization this far. In addition to that, we also acknowledge government functionaries and officials present in this place, and particularly we recognize the Ghana Health Service. We also take due regard of the fact that the Ghana Education Services have representatives herein represented, the Ghana AIDS Commission, Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice, the Early Warning Center, members of Parliament, and so on and so forth. We think this is very, very important for making time to be here with us. We appreciate that effort. Beyond that, we also have the academia. We acknowledge the University of Ghana Center for Policy Studies. Also acknowledge the presence and support of the University for Health and Allied Sciences School of Public Health. Professor A.C. Sutherland, we acknowledge your presence in this place. Prof, let's clap. Prof is here with us. We acknowledge your presence and all the support, and your investment in St. Ghana is duly recognized and acknowledged. We also have Professor Techua Menu, Professor Ellen Bote Doku, who happened to supervise my work when I was doing my master's at the University of Ghana. Prof, we acknowledge your presence wherever you may be. Prof Kata, Prof Bokwing, Prof Nana Ekia, Anyidoho. Wow. He also supported me and supervised my work when I was at the Institute, the ISA for short. Paul Emuama of the University of Health and Allied Sciences, we are also kindly acknowledged. As I said earlier on, the list is so long, and so at this point, let me acknowledge CSOs with a wave. Let's clap for CSOs that are here. Let's acknowledge their presence. We talk about IDEC, we talk about EduWatch, we talk about Ghana National Education Campaign Coalition. We talk about so many, CARE International, CPD, and also I'm here, Action Ghana. Then we have the implementing partners all over the place. I remember all our focal NGOs who are rooted at the community level and are doing a lot of the work that has continue to, pilot and push Send Ghana to the enviable heights that we have and we can see from where we stand today. We have so many of them, Peasant Farmers Association, and so on and so forth. All past staff of Send. Can we clap? Let's clap. Let's clap for all past staff of Send. I think I also proudly represent that group. So we are so happy to be here. I think we deserve another round of applause. Yeah. I'm so excited to be here. Then also the media houses permit us to also acknowledge Blue Vine and Abacus Digital for designing and printing the program of this very important ceremony. Then also we take due regard of the president of the ProView Multimedia for the photo shoot that they are here to support us to have. And so having said that, ladies and gentlemen, I want to reduce talking, invite my colleague, Harriet Ajiman, warmly introduce the chairperson for this occasion. Let's receive Harriet with a hand.
Thank you very much, John, and welcome back home. The chairperson for today's program is the professional development planner and economist by training and practice. He has over 28 years of professional policy practice, lecturing, and research experience at the international level in development planning, macroeconomics, public finance, project management. He is also a highly rated professional consultant working in the field of monitoring and evaluation. In fact, his working life spans academia. He's been with the United Nations. He's worked with civil society, and he's also with government. In government, he served as a senior technical advisor to the Ministry of Planning, facilitating the development of the coordinated program of the President, 2017 to 2024, and led its dissemination. Presently, he is the Director General of the National Development Planning Commission. Ladies and gentlemen, our chairperson for today is Dr. Kojo Esiem Mensah Abrampa. The chairman, your audience. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Harriet and Doc. We not attempt to take the wind out of your sail. And so at this point, I warmly invite you for your
Thank you. Thank you very much, Harriet and John, for the introduction. Let me acknowledge you have just very good friend, Janet, also giving me the support on the stage. We recognize the dint of hard work which has brought them all this far to be here for the friends. We recognize all of you leaders, of our mentors right here in this room. I recognize all of them. Those there from YCA, Ghana, PSO, Bouquets, Times, Villages, rooting for the poor. Recognize all of them. Let me say that I'm so happy, deem it as a privilege, to stand here today share this very important occasion, 25 years since. Remember, TFR is a mentor, for me, a big one, though to a lot of you. Our days of at YCS Center, the arguments all night long, then getting up in the morning to, those days, eat the wheat water. The wheat water, the morning, the afternoon, and what wheat. Wheat cooked with oil. Then in the evening, we try to make some balls from the wheat, same wheat. Those were very difficult days, but very pioneering for some of us. We were younger, so we really served as, put it this way, boys that they can count on to send around, buy the things, and look for newspapers in the morning, bring it to them. And I could see one of our elders keep watching, remember those Dogbe, Ugri, all the names, all of them. We learned from them. So if some of us are standing here today and speaking to you, thanks to all these, also TFR, who was an encouragement for all of us. In every situation, take it to be learning. I'm not surprised those days, having experienced all the challenges today. We did not turn it into a negative state. I turned it around, took the positive part of it. Many of them went to the development field to support those who did not have, like many of us. Supported us to learn, develop skills, knowledge. I'm not surprised the number of the reputable NGOs we have today in Ghana started from that. And you can have a long list of that. Send is one of them. You can have SEDEP. You can have also the one which also continues to support and render the same services that Ascend, and many of them very, very reputable up there in the north and south. Also, they did not forget Kumasi Center where all these things were. I am very happy today to serve as the chair for the case. Most importantly, talking about the years of championing transformative advocacy, livelihood security for the poor and the vulnerable. This is it. Way back in the 80s, 1992, when poverty was given an income measurement, the statistics show that 54% of Ghanaians below the poverty. That is just for income. Forget about access to services, where many of us have to struggle in the morning just to get a bucket of water, have your bath, go for a room. Therefore, you have to go around searching, jumping, crossing the street, dangerous point, walking all the way to KNUST just to get a bucket of water to have your bath. Those were the struggling days, poverty. As I indicated, many of it turned into positive. Coming out, joining hands, so as to deal with it, a decisive manner. Time that SEND was formed, again, poverty had reduced by income measurement, but it was still around 36%. Big jump. But there was a lot more to be done. Not just by the income, but the issue of deprivation, issue of inequality, most importantly, access to some of these fundamental services, which are very ordinary and normal. Many countries, we had to struggle to access all the discrimination in many forms, particularly against women and children. We had to struggle with that. There's no just a deviation at all when many of these NGOs did not go the normal way. We had to look for means to support those who have been deprived these basic livelihood opportunities. Therefore, I will be very happy, and I'm so happy 25 years for getting this on the ground. Situations seem to be changing. Changing in the sense that least we have equal numbers of boys and girls in any primary school. Wasn't the case. Talk about secondary schools also catching. Situation of where people are sick in the night and have to run just to catch up with the nurse and not the doctor. Change. I was looking at the statistics just a week ago. Realized that the northern part of the country, where many of us work, the health statistics show quite an improved situation, not only improved, but better than the national average. Access to a doctor in the northern part of Ghana is far better than my own region down south. I'm so happy. Remember those days when we were working with people in BC, and there was a problem with one of our staff. We had to run all the way to Biaga just to have access to which car. For the car that we came with, we sent it to go to Navro. So we had to stand by the roadside for many hours, just waiting for a car to take the person to be able to receive health. These are some. But today, 25 years, art here, for many of these NGOs, able to turn. So happy. Just 2 weeks ago, we're up there in the north, a platform talking about the development up there, the northern part, including OT. Getting the government focused once and for all, consistently deal with the issue of inequality, parity between the north and the south, and also respond to particularly issues related to children, women, providing for them opportunities to earn income and sustainable income, not seasonal things, which used to be the case. August listeners here, I am just here to say that I have accepted help in this occasion, so that by the time we depart from this room, we would have deeper appreciation of the huge effort Diakwa Team Mustang really contributed turning the wheel of poverty. The right direction is using it. It is not over. If you have a quarter of your country still below the poverty line, it means that we have a lot to do. Know that sin has a lot more for them to pursue, accomplish. That note, invite all of you, join me hearing this program to successfully mark this day, historically, become rejuvenation, redirection, a reactivation, activism in order to poverty.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So much, Chairperson, for important happening. As you said earlier on, be in charge of the T. So that data was not reflected in what he spoke to us about. More importantly, his experience in terms of Western Ghana started from under the leadership of everybody's mentor. I call him the Chief, Jaffa Kamara. On this occasion, your permission, Chairperson, I would like to also acknowledge the presence of the representative of the regional minister in this place. It's important for us to acknowledge the presence of Honorable Nia J. who is the representative of the regional minister in this place. Honorable, we do not take your presence for granted. We appreciate that. I stand on the behalf of SEN to appreciate your presence. We give you a slot to bring us remarks from the regional minister soon. In addition to that, let me turn back, Honorable Chairperson, to, with your permission, welcome Madam Janet Adama Muhammad, who is the board chairperson of SEN Ghana. And Madam Janet Adama Muhammad is not new to us. I know she's so measured, she wouldn't want me to talk about her, but with the permission of board chair, I think I can say one or two. Yes, sir. Janet Adama Muhammad is not new to many of us. I can see civil society, yeah, Oxfam, I can see Ghana Anti-Corruption Coalition, looking at me and smiling. I can see so many. I can see Star Ghana, the head of programs, also represented here, Eunice. Within the landscape of civil society, engagement, activism, and work, we are very much aware of the contribution of Madam Janet Adama Muhammad to the development of the landscape. I dare say most of us sitting here, in one way or the other, have passed through her hands, either by way of her mentorship, or by way of her guidance, or walking within her footprints. And I think that I'm one of the major beneficiaries. So you can see how happy I am to introduce not less a person to the podium, Madam Janet Adama Muhammad. We continue to listen to your wisdom. Thank you very much. She's closing my mouth. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All protocols observed. Thank you, CFA. The Social Enterprise Development Foundation of West Africa, SEN West Africa, is 25 Day. God be the glory. SEN West Africa was established in 1998 as a livelihood and food security program, an organization that was focusing on northeastern parts of the northern region. Today, it is developed into a multidimensional response organization that works around 3 countries on human security, development, and peace-building nexus. We know that SEN West Africa stands for pro-poor, works with pro-poor people, works with excluded people, works with marginalized people. In Ghana, Sierra Leone, and Liberia as national NGOs registered in each of these 3 countries with clear organization governance systems through strong as the National Executive Council of Ghana. The Chief Executive Officer, who is also the founder of the organization, Siafa Kamara. Sometimes I don't know what to say, whether he is my colleague in the NGO front or is my brother, but he's my brother born in another country. And we've journeyed along the terrains of the various countries together, and we understand each other a lot. So he is being supported by country teams. The country teams are headed by country directors, and together they oversee the overall policy direction. The country teams are headed by country directors, and together they oversee the overall policy direction of the three national organizations, the technical development of projects and programs, and ensures due diligence and oversight on the human resources in each of the country, reporting to the national executive councils. So you see that there are governance structures within which the organization operates. So it is not just Siafa Kamara who is heading the organization. There are teams that are operating in each of these organizations. And I see that the vision is quite clear at my back there with a clear mission. And so I would go ahead to talk about our coverage. So SEN West Africa, in Ghana, in Sierra Leone, in Liberia, implements projects and programs in the education sector, agriculture, health, peace building, and does this best through policy monitoring and tracking frameworks and tools. And I know you agree with me, when it comes to budget tracking, SEN is ahead. SEN West Africa is very much known for its accountability, pro-poor policy advocacy practice, working collaboratively with government ministries and other institutions, as well as its gender-inclusive participatory approaches, which facilitates local ownership of project outcomes at all intervention areas. In all countries, SEN has been successful over these 25 years, firstly because of its committed and loyal staff who provide technical expertise in all required fields of intervention. Thanks to all past and present staff of these 25 years. Thank you very much. The local populations, leaderships, and policy actors have accepted our collective vision to change situations for a better future, and we appreciate you all. To all project donors and friends of SEN, and I know there are several of friends of SEN here, we say Aiko for the support and encouragement to facilitating change through the series of interventions which we implement. I want to particularly dedicate our success and learning to the participating populations in all our intervention areas in the three countries, the SEN staff all over, for the collective responsibility, joint learning, and joint action, which have resulted in the success story which we celebrate today. Aiko. We are honored to have with us a friend of SEN West Africa, Dr. Esther Ofe-Abuajib, who is here to share the story of the organization in a more tasteful manner. And I tell you, in a more tasteful manner. Please, let's listen to her and get the lessons as takeaways of best practice. Thank you and welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Let's clap. Let's give her another round of applause. Thank you so much, Mama Janet Adama Mohammed. I will not attempt to say anything after you have spoken. Let us kindly move on at this juncture, Honorable Chairperson, to listen to another important personality who is the board chair of SEN Sierra Leone. Madame Lucy Cecilia Foray Gondo. I believe Madame Cecilia is joining us via online. And is the ICT here ready for us to receive the message from Mama Cecilia Gondo? ICT, are we ready? Thank you.
PEN West Africa is a family organization. And so I bring you greetings from Saint Sierra Leone. I am Lucy C.F. Gonda, board chair for Saint Sierra Leone. But as I speak, I'm not only speaking as board chair, but I'm also speaking as a Sierra Leonean woman from Kailan district, eastern part of Sierra Leone. Kailan district, as you may like to know, is a district that borders with neighboring countries, Guinea and Liberia, and was greatly hit by the rebel war, which entered Sierra Leone from Liberia through Kailan districts from 1991 to 2002. This 11 years war left Kailan districts vulnerable in terms of development, and so the people were hungry to have somebody, to have an organization that will liberate them. In 2008, the honorable by developing interventions in the following areas: healthcare, education, governance and women's political empowerment, livelihood and security, climate change, and women's economic empowerment and financial inclusion. SEND is a non-governmental and non-profit making organization with its vision in Sierra Leone as Sierra Leone, where the rights and well-being of Sierra Leoneans are guaranteed and safeguarded. With this, SEND embarked in promoting livelihood, good governance, ensuring accountable essential services, amplifying the voices of the voiceless, and striving for gender equality. As a foundation, the organization was welcomed by all in Kailan district, and its operations started changing the socio-economic and political status of the people. In 2012, the high representation of women in our local councils and parliaments was achieved because of the advocacy made by a very strong and established organization network, the Women's Network. This was outstanding and was recognized by the government in Sierra Leone. Recognizing the tremendous role SEND is playing nationwide, other districts became interested and requested for inclusion. Hence, SEND appreciates its partners, especially donors like Christian Aid, Irish Aid, Turkey, Teratech, WHH, BMZ, etc., etc. The organization expands its operational areas. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm pleased to inform this House that SEND is no longer a foundation in Sierra Leone, but an NGO that operates in 15 districts out of the 16 districts in the country. We have made marks in our interventions, especially in promoting women's political empowerment. SEND with its partners, the Women's Network, the Young Women's Network, participated in the development of the National Women's Manifesto, and also took part in the Sierra Leone Women's Conference youngest female parliamentarian is from our Young Women's Network, who was an executive member in the Connaught district, eastern part of Sierra Leone. SEN has broken the barrier of women not taking part in politics and decision-making roles. Women are now part of our traditional leaders' council. We now have female paramount chiefs, female section and town chiefs. The Nyakwi Secondary School for girls in Kenema, Eastern region of Sierra Leone, is a school of excellence for girls that study pure sciences. This school was established by Saint Sierra Leone. And a pupil from the school represented Sierra Leone in the UN with the education minister in 2022 and made meaningful contributions to the education for the girl child. SEN is no longer a household name in Sierra Leone, but as it is an international level as well, and has created an indelible mark in the lives of Sierra Leonean women. On behalf of Sierra Leone, I thank the CEO, Siafa Kamara, for his initiative of extending SEN to Sierra Leone as an affiliate member of SEN West Africa. The country director of SEN Sierra Leone, Joseph Ayamba, is our redeemer. His creativity, initiatives, and an exemplary leadership roles cannot be underestimated as far as empowerment of women, good governance is concerned. Joseph, we appreciate you and your team in Sierra Leone. Congratulations, SEN West Africa, for 25 years anniversary. We look forward for more celebrations in the future. May we continue to grow from strength to strength. Long live SEN Sierra Leone, long live SEN Liberia, long live SEN West Africa. Thank you all and God bless.
I have a friend who always say, "What a wow." Thank you so much, Board Chair Sierra Leone. Thank you so much. If the media can help me, that's good, to relocate our... All right, thank you, sir. Having said that, I nearly committed a very big mistake by failing to recognize the Deputy Country Director of ActionAid Ghana, Dr. Emmanuel, of SEN Ghana. So I'm still living in SEN Sierra Leone. I wanted to say many things about SEN Sierra Leone, but I decided to hold myself because of time. And Dr. Emmanuel Eifa, we duly recognize you. Thank you for all the leadership and the support that has brought us this far. And having said that, sir, can you take the front seat now? Thank you. And those of you behind, if you can move a little bit forward and then support. You are with SEN Ghana. I hope you can sit by your director and give him support, or you are a friend of SEN. So let's move a little bit forward so that we don't leave the front. Board member, thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, sir. Can you move a little front? Sirs, good. SEN at the back. Mark and Tim, can you move forward a little? Thank you. Thank you so much. So having said that, permit me to, at this point, introduce our guest for the anniversary lecture. I know she's also very modest and as humble ask the people, Mama Janet, but permit me to say one or two words to set the ball rolling so that you can play in the midfield. And so, Madam Esther or Dr. Esther Ofe Abuaje is a seasoned researcher with a solid record in public policy analysis and a development expert. Over the years, she has played critical leading roles in training policymakers as well as development researchers and in the provision of policy guidelines in a range of areas, including local economic development, gender mainstreaming, natural resources, and environmental management. As you all might be aware, Dr. Ofe Abuaje has served as the director for the Institute of Local Government Studies from January 2005 to January 2015. Prior to joining the ILGS in 1999, she was a senior lecturer at the Ghana Institute of Management and Public Administration, known as GIMPA in some circles. And pleasure is mine to introduce our mama, our doctor, our mentor, and our everything, Mama Dr. Ofe Abuaje, to the podium. Thank you so much. Let's clap. I believe she deserves a very huge round of applause.
Thank you very much, John. Distinguished Chairperson, when SEND was being thought about, strategized about, and so on, I could stand, I could walk. 25 years later, I can't stand so well. So I crave your indulgence to sit and operate from here. My sincere apologies. Thank you. Right, thank you very much. Distinguished Chairperson for this function, Dr. Kojo Mensah Brampa, is also a traditional authority, but I think he's not in that capacity here today. The chair of the SEND Ghana board, Auntie Janet, my old friend, chair of the Sierra Leone board, my brother and friend Siafa Kamara, his management team, my friends from the entire SEND family, current staff, past staff, collaborators, everybody, our friends from the CSO family, friends from the public sector. I'm one of those rare people who have an almost equal foot in both lives. Development partners, media, invited guests, ladies and gentlemen. I hope I haven't left anybody in this, and I reserve the last two for my revered traditional authorities and the representative of the regional minister. I want to say that I'm deeply honored by SEND for this invitation. 25 years of championing transformative advocacy, and I've also added social accountability and livelihood security for the poor and vulnerable, the story of SEND West Africa Foundation. The Social Enterprise Development Foundation, STEM Foundation West Africa, was established on the 4th of August 1998, was compelled by the needs of some of the most deprived communities in Ghana. And it has gone on to become one of the most influential non-governmental organizations in Ghana, West Africa, and indeed internationally, because it won the prestigious One Africa Award in 2010. Now, SEND's vision was and has been a West Africa where people's rights and well-being are guaranteed. And the organization's mission is to promote good governance and equality of men and women. And its values, which form the acronym PEOPLE, are participatory decision-making and development, partnership for human development, equality of women and men, learning, innovation, and sharing knowledge, openness, and accountability. And finally, enabling action based on information. Enabling action based on information. Distinguished Chair, SEND Foundation West Africa has played a remarkable role in the evolution of development practice in Ghana and the West African sub-region for a quarter of a century. For me, that is the most critical, one of the most critical contributions of all, actually informing and owning our development practice. And among several contributions, the organization has been at the cutting edge of promoting livelihood security, policy research and advocacy in social development, trade, macroeconomic trends, and human rights. SEND has been a critical player in mobilizing civil society, grassroots economic literacy and advocacy, gender mainstreaming, fostering cooperatives for economic independence of key groups, including farmers and young people, as well as its pioneering work in social accountability in this country. SEND has contributed models to development practice. We've often taken our models from other parts of the world and tried to adapt them with mixed success. But SEND has given us homegrown models, including the participatory monitoring and evaluation model, which it was developed in the early 2000s, and the gender model family concept, which has been given to us more recently. And these models have been taken up by other development practitioners and are now widely utilized. SEND has also played key parts in disseminating key national information to audiences. So, Chairman, you may not recall, but in the mid-2000s, when we were looking for GPRS and that, SEND actually facilitated the printing and distribution of some of these documents. I'm sure Siafa has forgotten it. But disseminating key national information to audiences which would not otherwise have been easy to access, as well as contributing to deepening knowledge about development practice through its publications. It has managed to forge a strong national policy level presence whilst maintaining a critical, credible commitment to the people at the community level. And I would like to argue this evening that SEND is trusted by the state, non-state, and development partner players almost in equal measure. Whichever key development principles SEND promotes in its programmatic work, the organization also role models internally. And this character has been particularly evident in its practices of downward accountability and gender mainstreaming. 5 years ago, I'm smiling because I remember some brochure that Siafa was insisting that they are going to practice gender mainstreaming and gender equality in SEND itself. I was saying, this guy is a joker. But now the joke is on me. 5 years ago, when SEND celebrated its 20th anniversary, the theme was on empowering good governance and transforming lives. This time round, the focus of the celebration is 25 years of championing transformative advocacy, and I've added the social accountability and livelihood security for the poor and vulnerable. Now, if we're talking about empowering good governance, and we are talking about advocacy and livelihood security as well as social accountability, then you can imagine the breadth and the expanse of work that SEND has undertaken over the years, demonstrating two main things: remarkable adaptability and responsiveness to changes in national and international political, financial, and economic environments, and its understanding of iterative processes in its practice, going back, refining the products, refining the processes and ideas that have been developed in collaboration with their principals, as well as those who have benefited from SEND's efforts and provided critical input for her work. Major shifts in organization and location took place a decade after its establishment, around the year 2007-2008, and then again from 2018 to date. And to quote Mr. Kamara, SEND came to the realization that a culture of forward thinking had to be integrated into sense ways of doing things, including hard reflection and balancing adaptive approaches with a proactive orientation. I don't think you remember when you said this. You said this in 2018. My responsibility this evening, distinguished chair, is to tell the story from an interested stakeholder's perspective. But in order to do that, and at least aspire to the honor of being said to be the lecturer, I should show some academic pretensions. And therefore, I want to explore some of the concepts that were provided in the title for my assignment. If we say championing, what does it mean? If we say transformative approaches, what do they mean? If we say social accountability, what does it mean? Livelihood security, and finally, the poor and the vulnerable. Distinguished chair, you are an expert in this area, but let me try. Transformative change is oriented around mobilizing and equipping citizens to be agents in monitoring and advocating improvements. It's also about allowing for learning and adaptation and integrating lessons learned from practice back into practice. Now, if we want to talk about social accountability, we can talk about all those approaches to building accountability that are informed by civic engagement. Then transformative approaches will aim at ensuring meaningful participation of all sections of the population in having their views reflected in their quality of life and the services to realize this and the design and delivery of these services. So that if we talk about transformative advocacy and we align it to social accountability, it's about equitable opportunities for citizens and civil society organizations to participate directly and indirectly in exacting, demanding, and receiving accountability and feedback, no matter their location, their socioeconomic status, or other differentiating characteristics. And it's also about equipping them to do so sustainably on their own volition when the need arises, where necessary, and assessing the effectiveness of their efforts. So that we have done advocacy, we've done social accountability, but to what extent are all people equitably involved, doing so on their own volition, being able to look back on their efforts and improving this delivery? So that it's not a question of a few people being involved and we touting the effort as having achieved social accountability or having undertaken advocacy. Therefore, it's about creating the spaces to engage governments and service providers to their commitments, advocate for their rights, influence those with the capacity to effect change, and particularly for persons who would be ordinarily marginalized from or unable to access the processes, the channels, and the opportunities that have been provided for citizens to engage and get feedback on issues of concern to them. It's about learning from their efforts to refine, learning from their efforts to refine future engagements. It's, the difference between invited public spaces and claimed public spaces. That's the difference between the transformation. Not just taking up the spaces that have been provided, but ones that these people with an issue are able to claim and utilize. That's the distinction for me here today. Livelihoods is here defined as adequate stocks and flows of food and cash to meet basic needs. And security implies secure ownership of or access to resources and income-earning activities, including reserves and assets, to offset risks, ease shocks, and meet contingencies. So that if we look at Frankenberger and McCuston defining livelihood security, it's about being adequate or having adequate and sustainable access to income and resources to meet basic needs, including adequate access to food, potable water, health facilities, educational opportunities, housing, time for community participation, and social integration. And so that the minimum components of the livelihood security would include jobs, skills, and safety nets. And when a person or a community is described as poor, distinguished chair, that one you are the expert, but let me try. For purposes of this exercise, it could refer to a state or condition in which a person or a community lacks the resources and essentials for a minimum standard of living. So that even though concepts of poverty have been largely around income poverty or monetary resources and access to basic needs and those related issues, the efforts to adopt a multidimensional approach provides us with a more complete picture of poverty for households, communities, and countries. For instance, until the late 2022, the global poverty line was $1.90. And then in the last quarter of 2022, the World Bank updated the poverty line from $1.90 to $2.15. Ghanaians will be poor. And which was, about 9.2% of the world's population fell under this in 2023. Now, in Ghana, it was estimated that if we are using the $1.90, then about 2.9 million Ghanaians should be considered to be living in that poverty. And the majority are in the rural areas, about 2.8 million of them. If we take a multidimensional measure to assess this using a capabilities approach, then we have to also think about the fact that I think a recent assessment by the Statistical Service indicates that about 45.6% of our population could be considered multidimensionally poor, using such issues as the lack of health insurance coverage, nutrition, school lag, and households without adequate educational qualification. Now, over the years, even though there have been considerable pro-poor investments which have resulted in reductions in multidimensional poverty over time, there are still some big issues to be dealt with. For instance, we still have a lot of work to do around the northern part of this country, as you were discussing. Vulnerability here is considered as being in a position where you can be disadvantaged or open to damage or stress, or the inability to respond to a disaster or hazard, or your susceptibility to all of this. And we can talk about physical vulnerability, economic vulnerability, social vulnerability, and environmental vulnerability. So are people who will be physically susceptible or vulnerable in life circumstances would include those with serious health conditions, long-term disability, physical impairments, age-related conditions, amongst others. And social causes of vulnerability could include limited access to political power and representation, and lack of access to information, and lack of public awareness and sensitivity to the circumstances of particular groups of people. And vulnerable persons would include persons with disability, ethnic minorities, elderly people, children or very young people, uninsured persons, homeless people, people without productive capacity, people with that capacity but with of low incomes, so that all of these would be worthy of our attention. And finally, championing. I took the word championing for granted, but apparently there's a whole body of knowledge on what championing it involves. And it involves vigorously defending and supporting through various actions, including advocacy, leadership development, empowering persons with action with information, networks, material resources, and acting as proponents for social change. Chairperson, I've gone through this process for my own selfish reasons so that people will see that academically I tried small for this. However, more importantly, as I was speaking, I hope you could see flashes of the work that CEND has done over the past 25 years. Back to the CEND story. The vision that gave birth to CEND Foundation arose from the founders experience with development practice, especially in the context of serious discussions around poverty. Those who will recall, we started having serious discussion about what constitutes poverty in the early 90s. The World Development Report of 1990 came out with a black cover, and the title was Poverty. And then we had all these discussions about the extent to which structural adjustment creates or actually impoverishes people. And there were those who argued that even beyond those who had been impoverished by structural adjustment, there were people who were locked in poverty cycles, intergenerational poverty cycles, and those who had been put there by seasonal events, conflicts, and such things. It was also in an era where civil society activism was growing in the West African sub-region as compared to the East African sub-region, against a narrative of non-performing governments and the need to fill gaps in services to citizens and communities. It was also about international responses and efforts to give governments boosts to lift themselves up and support their poor through structural adjustment mitigation initiatives. I'm sure some of us remember the PAMSCAD efforts, and later poverty reduction strategy papers, the PRSPs, the HIPIC initiatives, and later interventions based on poverty and social impact as impact assessments, all leading up to the Millennium Development Goals. But what did it really mean to be poor and vulnerable, particularly in the West African sub-region? There were people whose circumstances were such that they couldn't afford the essentials they needed to live or meet their basic needs on a sustained basis day to day. Some had been deprived for a very long time, others locked in a cycle of poverty on an international, intergenerational basis. Others had fallen into the situation from downturns in national economic trends, natural and human-made disasters, conflicts, and inadequate public services. Some had productive capacity, and they had the potential to foster their own turnaround, given the necessary assistance or the space to be heard. Zen Foundation, established on 4th August 1998, was compelled by the needs of some of these most deprived communities in Ghana. And on its establishment, Send envisaged social enterprise as blending social and economic elements to address poverty through communities owning their own development, thriving on strong institutions and driving their own economic development. Do you remember this one? You see. To this end, Send sought to integrate institutional development with economic development and social change with the people in charge. One intriguing philosophy that influenced Send was that if different ethnic groups living together in particular communities could be encouraged to invest together in common development initiatives, they would be less susceptible or less inclined to destroying these jointly owned assets. In other words, commonly owned community assets and strategic resources like offices, like social infrastructure and service facilities were less likely to be destroyed, including in geographical areas that had recently experienced conflict and peace was still fragile. A needs assessment conducted in the Eastern Corridor between 1998 and 2000 and in 2001 gave birth to the Eastern Corridor Livelihood Security Programs, which was initiated in 4 districts, which was then in the northern region of Ghana. The Tamale municipality is Gonja, Nanumba North, and Ketekrachi districts, and it was supported by the Canadian Cooperative Association and the Canadian International Development Agency, CIDA. As Send consolidated its understanding of how development interventions did or did not impact on local communities, families, and the poor, it became interested in national level policy making and implementation processes. Now, it found ways in which to feed its local level experiences into national processes, and the relationships that had begun between NGOs and government, even though had improved over the last decade, were cemented by the new ways or the new culture that Send promoted for working together. And I'm saying this from an informed position because I've been associated, Chairman said, with all of those amazing NGOs you were mentioning. You know, I've been on the board of ISODEC for at least 20 years. I used to be on the board of SEDEP for a very brief period. I still am on the board of ARHR. You see, so these circles, I know them and I understand them. But I would like to give credit to SEND for helping us to navigate and pioneer the ways in which NGOs and civil society work with government. SEND participated in the formulation and dissemination of the Ghana Poverty Reduction Strategy and the Growth and Poverty Reduction Strategies, GPRS 1 and 2, and also stimulated work around HIPIC, being well known for the HIPIC Watch work involving programming and monitoring from the district level and providing results of effects and impacts. And a lot of the impact reports were published in 2006 and 2007, supported by such organizations as Quad Aid, Christian Aid, and Oxfam. The SEND Sierra Leone Country Program was established in 2006. And as we heard from the board chair, it is now a thriving entity operating in at least 15 districts. Over the next few years, SEND very actively mobilized CSOs around the Millennium Development Goals and undertook advocacy on trade policies and also the ACP-EU Economic Partnership Agreement, building up the requisite evidence to support these endeavors. A new trajectory of activities arose with the grassroots economic literacy and advocacy program, which would enable local actors to better monitor social and economic activities. With support from its Canadian partners, SEND documented information on food security in its partner districts and stepped up efforts in human rights and support for persons with disabilities. Other national programs with potential for supporting the poor and vulnerable attracted SEND's attention for monitoring, including the Ghana School Feeding Program, which was a novelty introduced in 2008. And the participatory monitoring and evaluation frameworks that had been developed earlier were refined, and policy monitoring and advocacy extended to other parts of the country. HIPIC Watch was transformed into Citizens Watch, and with SEND doing all of these exciting things, as I mentioned in my opening statement, won the One Africa Award in December 2010. After a decade of operations, SEND initiated activities that pointed to its sensitivity to national and developmental issues. Amongst others, SEND initiated action to mainstream gender into all of its programs and organizational activities, and undertook steps, conscious steps, and built intentional capacity and also strategic planning. And this was at a time where core funding sources were drying up. But SEND wanted to be able to be responsive to its context. And by 2012, it had become a West African umbrella entity with its operations ongoing in Sierra Leone and with a country program in Liberia as well. Because of its focus on protecting the poor and vulnerable, SEND's advocacy on public social interventions rightly targeted those activities that have now become a part of the key flagship programs in our social protection basket. I've already mentioned the work around the school feeding, but also the National Health Insurance Scheme, the Livelihood Empowerment Against Poverty, and the capitation grants became areas of investigation and assessment. And some of the areas of interest that SEND worked in was to explore the linkages between these programs, issues of access for the poor, their effectiveness, equity, prospects for integration, and particularly for persons with disability. And indeed, if we look at the champions for those who actively campaign for a share of the District Assembly's Common Fund for persons with disability, you'll find the handprint of SEND there. By the middle of the 2010s, SEND was known for its policy advocacy, its coalition building, budget literacy, budget tracking, and advocacy, especially in basic education, health, and water and sanitation. And SEND had the opportunity to employ more innovative tools in its social accountability when it adopted digital platforms in the Start of People for Health project, implemented and supported by USAID in 2016 and 2021. Chair, SEND did not restrict its capacity building to civil society alone, but it also had opportunities to train local government partners, staff on financial resource mobilization and other interventions to improve, amongst others, agricultural productivity. So in the first 2 decades, we can attest to Transformative Livelihoods work, including its interesting financial inclusion and graduation model, which combined microfinance and credit union support so that beneficiaries could build their capacities and graduate to higher levels of financial engagement. And this approach particularly supported women, their inclusion, their empowerment, and growth. Another interesting area of work was the family-based farmers cooperative model, which involved the establishment of cooperatives to support livelihoods, extension, marketing, and peace building to promote food security. The rural commercial women's organizations, which were also self-organized and included a wide range of operators to benefit from microfinance, entrepreneurship training, mutual support, and role modeling. Now, the ideal situation for SEND was not only about enhancing capacity for a viable economic activity, but also to help people through institutions, including farmers-based cooperatives, families, and credit unions. Some of these things that we take for granted, that now everybody, every Tom, Dick, and Harry thinks that if you want to do policy literacy, you gather evidence, you do policy advocacy, was not the run of the mill, or it was not what was the culture during those times. And a lot of organizations benefited from the documentation of SEND's experiences in that area. One would ask, with the rising visibility of SEND on the policy landscape and its national level accolades, did it lose its presence at the community level? Did it lose its commitment to percolating ideas from the clients of public programs and rights holders to policymakers? I would argue not. And I want to back this argument with the work that SEND did in its fostering project, or the food security through cooperatives in northern Ghana. And SEND, one important thing about the fostering project was that SEND articulated deliberately 4 downward accountability principles: honesty and transparency through information provision by radio, community notice boards, town hall meetings, and newsletters; empowerment through skills building and confidence to use the information; creation of spaces and platforms for stakeholders to demand and get feedback through community fora; and stewardship, including following through and optimal use of resources, monitoring, and evaluation. So, Chairman, these things I'm saying, they appear commonplace now. But at that time, the level of intentionality and detail and deliberation was interesting and remarkable. SEND's efforts were evident in other places, such as its support for a comprehensive long-term plan of the Northern Savannah Accelerated Development, the Global Partnership for Social Accountability, which worked on making the budget work for Ghana, support for parliaments, and the National SDG, Sustainable Development Goal Implementation Coordination Committee. By the second decade of SEND's existence, around the turn of the decade, we asked around, what has SEND been able to do to foster proper development, ensure accountability, and participation of the poor? And some of the answers were summarized as follows. SEND's involvement in constructive engagement for impacting on policy development. contributing to coalition building and joint action by civil society. Particularly, I've already mentioned the SDGs, but SDG Goal 10 Coalition, the National Share Network, Accountable Democratic Institutions and Systems Strengthening, and the Universal Access to Health campaign. Again, since pioneering work in establishing participatory monitoring and evaluation networks at the district, regional, and national levels for social accountability came up for acclaim. Now, SEND was regarded as an undisputed champion of the poor and the marginalized, particularly women, farmers, residents in conflict-affected and deprived areas, and persons with disability. It had built strong relationships with marginalized groups. It had facilitated farmers' livelihoods and productivity. It had promoted community-based cooperatives, and as well as promoted the adoption of ICT to explore enhanced market access. And it had adopted an ethos of working through government budgeting from a social accountability perspective to ensure that citizens' demands were consistently collated. And I want to argue this evening once again that 5 years later, this reputation is still very well deserved. SEND built an international reputation, having had its gender model family adopted by the Ministry of Agriculture in Ethiopia and supported international development organizations Sierra Leone and Cote d'Ivoire amongst farming families. The PME and financial models have been utilized in Sierra Leone and Liberia, and capacities have been built for CSOs in Uganda and Burkina Faso to replicate the model. And capacity building and experience sharing have been facilitated between the 3 country programs for women politicians and other such initiatives. Now, SEND itself, like I said earlier, Chairman, sir, is a learning organization dedicated to practicing and testing the models internally. And it had to manage its own organizational development to respond to the demands of its vision and develop the requisite capacity and ensure that it was organizationally and financially sustainable. So far to date, it has managed. At least we see people here in SEND cloth, so maybe the organization is still surviving. Again, it still has a strong leadership or national leadership presence in social accountability, and it's still relevant and responsive at the subnational level. But all of this is an ongoing challenge. SEND learned to stick to its strategy of catalyzing social enterprise development, participatory and self-directed development, and mutual accountability at all levels. Strategic communication has been important to SEND through all means to all concerned as essential. They also have learned and have taught us that you build relationships and partnerships, but it requires time and careful nurturing. It doesn't work with speed or sprout overnight. Organizing people to work in committees has come at considerable cost and required careful understanding of the expectations on each side. Other lessons include the fact that documentation is critical, not only for recording experiences, but also for disseminating lessons. SEND has had to manage clear political neutrality and objectivity so that it remains accessible and acceptable to all potential collaborators. And far ahead of several NGOs and CSOs, SEND's dialoguing strategy, while others were still using confrontational mechanisms in their advocacy efforts, have paid off. SEND explored the concepts and ethos of leadership that would encourage stakeholders to own processes, share decisions, commit to common purposes, not only in its programs, but in the organizational level, organization itself, starting from the governing board level. Now, over the past 5 years, SEND's human rights focus has undergirded the organization's work in all of its country programs, both in Ghana and in Sierra Leone. SEN's long-standing emphasis on accountability has focused on transformative approaches, as I tried to define earlier on. The organization over the past 5 years has become more invested in emergency preparedness, particularly in relation to health, including advocacy to promote increased domestic financing and disbursement of funds to prioritize immunization. The new areas of experience that have emerged in this quest to assure right-based development include the following. For instance, HIV/AIDS is an area that SEND Ghana has supported human rights in. It has done this with the assistance of the United States Agency for International Development, and HIV/AIDS-related work has brought in its wake partnerships and capacity support for entities like the Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice. An important characteristic of SEN, Mr. Chair, is this agility and capacity to respond to emerging vulnerabilities. In the COVID era, SEN participated in live monitoring of the vaccine process, accompanying teams to assess the levels of compliance. And if we are talking about epidemic preparedness, SEN's work with its collaborators to influence the fiscal space and campaign for ring-fenced money by the government of Ghana for this purpose has been notable. And therefore, the epidemics preparedness and response financing, which has been funded by the Global Advocacy Incubator, has been running since 2020. And in this effort, SEN has worked with Parliament towards the establishment of a public health emergency fund, as well as targeted advocacy efforts at district and national levels. Not only Parliament, but with also health professional and regulatory bodies, traditional authorities, religious groups, youth associations, and media houses. And some of the key players in this effort are the Ghana Academy of Arts and Sciences, the Ghana Association of Medical Laboratory Scientists, the Ghana Association of Public Health Technical Officers, the research units of various institutions, including the School of Public Health, the University of Health and Allied Sciences, and the National Center for Coordination of Early Warning and Response Mechanisms. Some very interesting outcomes which have found their way into a draft national security policy and the inclusion of public health emergencies in the action plans of partner municipalities and district assemblies. SEND has also been involved in advocacy related to cocoa policy issues, working with a range of civil society actors, farmer organizations, CSOs, trade unions, and media. And there's been dialogue on issues such as cocoa pricing, living incomes, human rights due diligence in the supply chain, and an enhanced capacity of farmers and CBOs to engage policymakers and private companies on these issues. Now, over the past 5 years, SEND has also continued the social protection and budget advocacy work in a bid to create more equitable opportunities for the poor and vulnerable and to safeguard safety nets for the most impoverished and vulnerable. And it has been instrumental, or was instrumental, in mobilizing citizens' views on social protection to government through the Ministry of Gender, Children, and Social Protection. SEN's handprints are also evident where people need tangible services on their doorsteps. So with facilitation from SEND under the People for Health intervention, community health management committees in their partner districts have mobilized resources both in cash and kind to deliver 23 health infrastructure projects, including CHIPS compounds, expanding labor wards, accommodation facilities for staff, pavilions for child welfare, logistics including furniture, storage tanks, and other equipment. In like manner, water and sanitation management teams in 58 communities also mobilize their people to secure boreholes, manage water facilities, engage in good bookkeeping practices, and ensure good sanitation practices. And you'll find interesting initiatives to improve household security in communities such as Kotingli, a suburb of Tamale, Konko and Ochetri in my neck of the woods, Akuapem North. Other actions have included the construction of household toilets and latrines across project districts, thereby reducing cholera outbreaks and other infectious sanitation-related diseases. Distinguished Chair, SEND has continued its work in sexual and reproductive health rights with young people and building their capacities to make their voices heard. You'll find that they've made their voices heard in their advocacy for provisions in national budgets, areas of focus including addressing sexual and gender-based violence, ending adolescent pregnancies and early marriages, and the removal of high taxes on sanitary products, as well as expanding coverage of the National Health Insurance Scheme for long-term family planning services. Distinguished guests, I crave your indulgence to talk about something extremely interesting that the SEND Sierra Leone chairperson alluded to, that it's its work around youth programming and women in governance. I had the privilege of beginning to feel it when a team visited from Sierra Leone to the Institute of Local Government and so on. So I've been looking with such interest. Now, I would like to inform this House that the critical target of 30% of women legislators in Sierra Leone has been realized, and the achievement can be attributed clearly and in part to the work of SEND, including the efforts in molding women projects for young women leadership. And I think you heard the chairperson referring to their STEM, or science, technology, mathematics efforts. They have built a school, a boarding facility for young women, for 300 girls, and I would like to acknowledge them. The intriguing approach adopted in SEND Sierra Leone is choosing to work with women associated with political parties as opposed to independent candidates. And the philosophy is very interesting. The idea is that when women work as independent candidates, they lack the institutional backing, the requisite institutional backing. So that is to equip them to be able to work within these bodies and make their presence felt. So that without the institutional backing, that women will become vulnerable to all the vicissitudes of political life in West Africa for women, including stereotypes, the absence of networks and alliances, the issues of social entry, the lack of material resources. SEND wants to equip women to be able to navigate their way within political institutions to address this. And so SEND works cooperatively with the women's wings of the two dominant political parties and supports women to enable them to remain part of the coalition around common interests, so that women's concerns are recognized in the work that political parties are supposed to do. The gender model family idea has evolved and grown over the past decade and has enhanced SEND's reputation. And SEND Sierra Leone extended its use, attracting the interest of various development partners in its efficacy as a gender transformation tool. And even in our own country, the GMF has demonstrated considerable versatility and flexibility, empowering women and their families for participation in environmental, agricultural, and primary health care related activities. For instance, beyond northern Ghana, if you look in the eastern region around Esuchare, with the support of JICA, you can see gender model family work related to the environment. Under the auspices of the Millennium Development Authority, GMF has been used to provide gender sensitivity in relation to energy sources. As I indicated earlier on, the budget analysis work has also widened. High-quality work is being done on national, sectoral, and sub-financial plans and budgets, and SEND is partnering other organizations and budget advocacy, as well as training, doing a lot of training for CSOs and other entities. The work that has also shown resilience and versatility is in the microfinance and graduation areas. And it has still promoted the idea that microfinance must grow entrepreneurs. You know, traditionally, you give them the money, they pay, and they go home. You give them the money, they pay, and they go home, and then they thank God, and then they come for more. Now, the impacts of sense work, particularly now what is the OT region, around Ketikrachi and also going further up to Pandai, are evident. Having capacitated women's groups and then linking them to credit unions, emboldening them and their businesses. 13 credit unions in the eastern corridor of Ghana, in and around Nalerigu and other places are thriving. And the Send Financial NGOs project, I think Send, I don't want to pronounce it, but I think it's Send, whatever. But you know what I'm talking about. The Send Financial NGOs, the acronym, I beg, Emmanuel, I can't say the acronym. I know I've talked about the graduation model, has expanded access to formal financial services to 20,693 beneficiaries. And our interest, or their interest in all of this, is that out of every 3 beneficiaries, you count women as 2 of the direct beneficiaries, in the sense that women constitute about 66% of all direct beneficiaries. Since interest in food security is evident in the ongoing Nutrition Stewardship Program, a 5.5-year project funded by the Global Affairs Canada, which will end in 2024. This project brought together the Cooperative Development Foundation of Canada, Fertilizer Canada, the African Plant Nutrition Institute, and is being implemented in 130 communities across 4 districts in northern Ghana to improve the economic well-being, productivity, and sustainable operations of 30,000 poor, vulnerable smallholder farmers who are particularly women. So, Chairman, I could talk to you about the agricultural development work. I could talk to you about the capacity building in this area. I could talk to you about the management information services that are being used to track nutrition omissions. I could talk to you about the trial and learning sites. I could talk to you about the development of community volunteer agricultural extension agents to bridge farmer extension gaps. I could tell you that the community volunteer model has proven to be a workable facility for promoting good agronomic practices. Learning sites for training and outreach for male and female smallholder farmers have been provided across a 4-district project in East Gonja, Nanumba North, Nanumba South, and Pandai. And therefore, good agronomic practices, including climate-smart agriculture, composting, zero or minimum tillage, and improvement of seed varieties are going on very successfully. And they have been supported with knowledge materials, guides, and posters. Sen's exciting fostering program provided a lot of lessons for cooperative activity, justifying the confidence in such groups as vehicles for development. Mr. Chairman, I'm saying this because people are ambivalent about cooperatives in this country. It took a very long time for the Cooperative Act to be reviewed. From the 60s, it's only been recently reviewed. And people argue, oh, in parts of Ghana, like Southern Ghana, they don't like cooperatives, and so on and so forth. But the farmer-based cooperatives have taught us that with this use, smallholder farmers were able to increase their access to resources and opportunities within their great value chain. And primary cooperatives gained access to tractor services, certified seeds, weedicides, pesticides, and fertilizers. 3 grain warehouses were refurbished in Salaga, Pandai, and Chamba. And labor-saving devices, including Motor King tricycles, knapsack sprayers, and multi-purpose planters were subsidized for purchase by both male and female smallholder farmers. Chairman, village savings and loans associations have also been pursued as mechanisms for group cohesion and internal savings and lending within the cooperatives, so that some members have been able to access financial services with larger entities such as the Salaga Farmers Cooperative Credit Union. And these cooperatives have been the media for building leadership capacities of these persons in good governance, business practices, record keeping, conflict management, and negotiation. The success of these approaches over a decade, over 2 decades and a half that SEND has pioneered this, has not seen a slowdown in pace in SEND's social accountability effort. There's been increasing emphasis on equitable participation in and the rights for all to be engaged in demands for responsibility. From my reading, you'll find that over the years, partnerships have been diversified in interesting ways, including funding sources. If you look at the way funding landscapes and trends have shifted over the past 5 years, resulting in downturns because of the dwindling flows from international economies and shorter periods for specific partner interests, you will see that these shifts and explorations are a matter of survival. Some donors, some partners, like Oxfam and Global Affairs Canada, are still part of SEND's success story. But SEND's funding partnerships have widened from international NGOs to attracting support from bilateral and multilateral institutions and foundations and other such entities. I think earlier on I was telling you about the Global Advocacy Incubator, for instance. That's a fancy new foundation. And well, it's not new, but it's fancy. And in the last 5 years, USAID has also supported important activities. American Advocacy Incubator. And Siafa was telling me about a World Bank facility that provides technical assistance through retired experts, which I think is interesting. So as I begin to wind up, the lessons have been various. When 2 decades, 5 years ago, when we looked at the lessons, they were interesting and different. But I would like to say that 25 years later, a lot of SEND's original hypotheses have been borne out, including the need to transform gender relations at both the household and community levels, and to equip communities to establish internal mechanisms for growth and agency. And I mentioned earlier the community volunteer agricultural extension agent model and the various community-based structures to foster health, sanitation, governance, and accountability. Admittedly, the establishment and sustained functioning of these structures are a long process and even demands material investments. However, ways must be found to motivate and sustain these efforts. And models that require clear community contributions and ownership, such as the Village Savings and Loans Associations, helps to sustain economic transformation and self-determination amongst participants. SEND's experience also indicates that viable and mutually beneficial relationships can be built between state and non-state entities at all levels. And other experiences in SEND's transformational action for bettering the lot of poor and vulnerable people include the following. SEND's original focus and vision remains relevant. However, emerging events will bring out new or underserved areas of vulnerability, people's rights and well-being, which should be guaranteed. I mean, COVID brought new experiences, the HIV/AIDS issues have brought new experiences, but the vision and the ethos remain relevant. Strategic planning for organizations is critical, but you can't remain locked in there. You have to retain the capacity to be agile and responsive to emerging threats to people's rights and equitable access to development resources. Thirdly, development is a multifaceted and multi-stakeholder undertaking. Somebody will be saying in their head that I'm stating the obvious. But what it requires is that development organizations have to be multi-purpose in their orientation. You see, the pressure has been on NGOs and development organizations to get out of service delivery, you know. But after we continue and we do advocacy and we take the people along, their lives must be lived. They need critical services on their doorsteps. But how do you do this without spreading your efforts too thin? The focus on good governance that has engaged development organizations over the last decade is critical. It has underpinned the advocacy and engagement efforts of SEND and other organizations. But there's still an urgent need to make a difference in the services available to people in their day-to-day lives. So that what happens when you advocate with the duty bearers and the there is not there? They just don't have the capacity to deliver. So that there's still a case for non-state entities to consider support services alongside their rights-based advocacy. SEND's Livelihood's work has proven innovative and impactful. And institutional leadership for national NGOs and, well, the West African sub-region must develop the capacity to be predictive and to be able to forecast the critical factors that can affect their organizations. And I think a critical case in point is the funding landscape. You'll find that a lot of NGOs and CSOs are scrambling to diversify their sources, exploring who is out there and trying to maintain their focus without being driven to where the money is driving towards. And therefore, whilst they are interested in all of this, they must also support and highlight the nuances that will foster local philanthropy and engaging various philanthropic entities and funding facilities. So in conclusion, SEND has been an organization that has grown from its beginnings in the late 1990s that was in search of practical ways of responding to the different forms in which poverty manifested and ways of equipping people to find sustainable solutions. In partnership with the communities they work with, SEND has developed workable models, learning and improving them through adapting them in practice and making them available to others in the development community. The two main themes that have characterized SEND's work, the promotion of livelihood security and advocacy, have inured to championing transformative social accountability for the poor and the vulnerable. And it has evolved in various ways which I have mentioned, including cooperative formation, peace building, gender transformation, and conflict management. The policy advocacy that has undergirded the rights-based orientation of SEND is still vigorously championed, and the links with the grassroots have been maintained to provide feedback for national policy coherence and review. And the vulnerable, including women, young people, persons with disability, persons living with HIV/AIDS, and residents of marginalized and underserved communities, have heard their voices in the messages and reflected in the national policy gatherings through the agency of SEND. Therefore, SEND has been a towering contributor to development practice and thinking in Ghana and the West African sub-region. I would like to conclude that it is facilitated by its capacity to build the strengths of people at the individual and micro levels, as well as the meso levels, by support to state and non-state institutions at the subnational level. And it has marked these efforts with its work at the macro level by feeding back lessons from practice and by championing the rights of the poor and vulnerable. Ladies and gentlemen, you will join me in saying Ayeko to SEND West Africa and to all her staff, current and previous, partners, principals, champions, funders, friends, and everyone else who's part of the story for the past 25 years. Thank you very much for your attention.
I believe that you deserve it. standing ovation. Let's clap, let's give her another round of applause. This is really, really towering. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. You may take your seats. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Honorable Chair, I believe that the message has been drilled down. And the story of the journey has really been towering. And I believe that we would continue to deliberate on these. And as we go forward, here and even out of this place, this will continue to be the dominant message that we'll be carrying home. Once again, thank you so much, Dr. Ofeya Boaji. Having said that, I believe that we have been sitting for some time, and may I humbly suggest, with your permission, Chair, for us to have a musical interlude, and some of us may want to pay attention to ourselves, freshen ourselves, and then, but please don't go far away. Enjoy the musical interlude. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you so much. We will present a song by a Ghanaian ethnomusicologist, Dr. Livelihood. A song that says the development of a country depends on you, and by extension, the development of your institution depends on you, it depends on me. Very popular Ghanaian song, Yangara Sasi. If you know the song, let's do it together. Very song we did, it emphasizes the fact that we should have love for our country. And from all indications, the activities of Central Ghana, and for that matter, Central West Africa, if you do not have love in your heart for what you do, you can never do what you do. And so it repeats the song again, a song that emphasizes the fact that we should be patriotic enough to love our country by working in our country's favor. Listen to the music again. Okay. Wow. And so when it comes to music, Ghana and Sierra Leone, we all have highlights. In the case of Sierra Leone, Maringa. Let's do something for every one of us. All for you, it is all for you. All for you, it is all for you. I did with you, Mama. I did with you, Papa. I did with you, Brother. It is all for you. I did with you, Mama. I did with you, Papa. I did with you, Sister. It is all for you. All for you. I did with you, all for you. All for you. I did with you, all for you. All for you. It is all for you. All for you. It is all for you. I did with you. I did with you, Mama. I did with you, Papa. I did with you, Brother. All for you. I did with you. I did with you, Mama. I did with you, Papa. I did with you, Brother. All for you. All for you. I did it. All for you. All for you. I did it. All for you. All for you. Baby, all for you. All for you. Baby, all for you. I did with you, Papa. I did with you, Brother. I did with you, Brother. All for you. I did with you, Papa. I did with you, Brother. I did with you, Sister. All for you.
Wow, 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 wow. That's so lovely. That's so good. Thank you so much for that very, very good round of music. Having said so, let me, with the permission of Chairperson, step a little bit forward in terms of taking one or two general comments about what we've heard from our guest speaker. I think that, Harriet, do we have, is he around? Honorable, is he around? Yeah. Okay. So that's fine. Can we have one or two? If there are some strong inputs we want to put across, one or two comments, I think this is the time to do so. Let me also acknowledge the presence also of our lawyer. One send Ghana staff, always a send Ghana staff. And so if I say our lawyer, I'm talking about Lawyer Saint, board member. I think he has stepped out a little. Let's clap. I saw him. He was around. These are people who have sacrificed so much in terms of providing voluntary support in taking the organization to where we are today, and we need to acknowledge their kind support. Apart from that, we invited the Christian Council. Do we have a representative here? We wave at you. Thank you for coming. And then the Office of the Chief Imam. We duly acknowledge your kind presence. Your presence has graced our ceremony. And please, can some of the SEND staff help us get those outside to come back in? Let them return to session because we want to optimize our time. Any general comments? One or two? Okay, brother. You have the floor.
Thank you very much. I'm Michael Kisibuatin from the National Development Planning Commission. In the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals, one of the high points for Ghana is the way we are able to have our CSOs come together, and government is easily able to have interactions and run some projects and interventions with. In fact, up till now, certain countries like Tunisia, they are having problems with such a thing. So the government tries to do something, and then CSOs are accusing each other. Why were you called? Why this CSO and all that? But we don't have that problem in Ghana. And I know that SEN is a very pivotal partner in this. That's how come Ghana has such a collective platform for the CSOs, and it helps us in implementing SDGs. And many countries are trying to learn from us. So I add my voice to the achievement of SEN and congratulate you on the 25th anniversary. And we're seeing more of them go on and do more for country Ghana.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, my good friend. Did you mention your name?
Yes. I'm Michael Kisibuatin from the National Development Planning Commission.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Can we take one more? Otherwise, we step forward. Okay. Thank you, sir.
If I'm here and I don't say anything, I think I'm not here in solidarity with SEN Foundation. I'm Tony Dogbe. And I only got my invitation yesterday. How my friend could do that to me, you know, and when he said it, I said, you can only do that to a friend. I know times like this, you tend to, there's so much, you know, that you overlook some people that are very close to you. So I understood that. But I must say that it's not easy to survive 25 years as an entity in Africa, in our turbulent economic, social, political situation. So we should not take it as any small achievement that we can be here today to celebrate SEND having gone through all this, but not only being there, but has also achieved a lot and being a kind of a pathfinder in many ways. And to do that across West Africa, at least in 3 countries, is even much a bigger achievement. So again, I'll join everybody to say congratulations to and to the leadership of Siafa Kamara, who has made Ghana his home, and Liberia his second home, and Sierra Leone his third home. So I think I'm here more to say, I know I've been part of the journey of SEND Foundation, seen it grow from 98, and together we have had some disagreements on how we do things and so on. So for me, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Sefa.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. At this point, there's one. Okay.
Sure.
Thank
you very much. Good evening, everyone.
Yeah.
So I'm Stephen Atasige, the country coordinator for the Global Health Advocacy Incubator. And I want to take this opportunity to congratulate SEND West Africa for this feat of 25 years of operation. And I want to say, of course, listening to this wonderful statement or address, I want to give a testimony of SEND's outstanding expertise. And we, as Global Health Advocacy Incubator, obviously have experienced at first hand some of these wonderful, skills and expertise that SEND Ghana carries as a civil society organization. And I think it wouldn't be fair to SEND Ghana if I don't use this opportunity to, add my voice and to say, of course, as a testament to their great work. And I believe the sky is the limit, and we're sure that even going forward, we're going to have sent Africa beyond West Africa. Wow. So I say congratulations again, and we look forward to even, a brighter future in collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I think there's a gender dimension. Let's get the executive secretary of GACC Beauty.
My name is Beauty Mefanate. I work for the Ghana Anti-Corruption Coalition. I also like to add my voice to what has been said. The Ghana Anti-Corruption Coalition has witnessed firsthand the work of Send Ghana in Ghana and even in Sierra Leone. And we can attest to most of the things that Auntie Esther and the many speakers has talked about. We have seen the impact and influence of Send's work, and we believe that it's important for Send to continue to shape and influence the support it gives, especially to the local level. And I also want to challenge Send Ghana that I think when you had the 20 years, you documented something that you put out there to help people. It will be good to also see a 25-year documentation. And I'm looking at Auntie Esther because I know she's good at that. So I'm sure we'll see that. And also on behalf of the CSO platform on SDGs, as a co-chair, we also want to acknowledge the support of Send Ghana for the SDG implementation in Ghana. In fact, Send championed and hosted us all these years. Even without resources, Send continued to use its own resources to ensure that the SDG implementation on the part of CSO is realized and attained in Ghana. So on behalf of all the members, I say congratulations once again, and thank you, Send Ghana, for all the work you do.
Thank you so much, Beauty. I think we have stepped into the next item, and so we will just continue with that. Whilst acknowledging those of you who have already spoken, we would want to step forward a little and come back. We'll go online, and then we would come back. All right, if the mic is closer, say, you can take the floor. Thank you, sir.
I would like to say a big thank you to the speaker. I think she has very well articulated the work of Send, and I've done some work for Send before, and I could just see through some of the things she was saying, and it was really fascinating to see how well she has documented and presented them. Thank you very much, Doug. It was refreshing listening to you. I'll also take this opportunity to also congratulate Send for a wonderful work done. And I think the whole of Ghana and West Africa is grateful to you. And we wish you all the best, and hopefully another 25 years we'll see Send hitting higher heights.
Thank you so much, sir. The next 5, 10, 15, 25 years, Send will be hitting Send Africa and Send Global. I think that's a great player for our organization. Thank you so much. All right. Thank you so much. The next person we would want to listen to is a great personality, Mr. Lassana Kamara, who happens to be the uncle of our Chief Siafa Kamara. Those of us on ICT, do we have our big uncle, Lansana Kamara? He has the floor, please. Do we have him? Not yet. Okay, then let's step forward. Please, when you have him, kindly draw my attention and we would bring him in. Let us also then move a step forward in taking a solidarity message from one of our key donors, and by that I've indicated that when I say our, I'm putting myself back to where I came from. And that's Ghana. And so we want to listen to Oxfam. Sadat is here, who happens to be my former boss. And honor is mine to invite you to speak to us on solidarity messages. Thank you, Sadat.
Thank you very much. Distinguished Chair, let me stand on the existing protocols to make some few comments about the relationship between Oxfam and SEND West Africa. I'm doing this on behalf of Oxfam's country director, who unfortunately could not make it to this event. So if I make any mistake, you will pardon me. And if I do well, the credit goes to him for allowing me to come. But it's always difficult to talk when people like Auntie Esther speaks about the journey between Oxfam and SEND as it is. And like she indicated, I think in the early 2000s, when the global development landscape was also shifting towards advocacy, social accountability, and making sure that
is there a way that I could
appeared, came out strongly, and Oxfam didn't hesitate in coming in to support those innovative initiatives such as the HIPIC Watch, which later became Citizens, and many of the interventions that Auntie Esther has mentioned in the area of ensuring social accountability, mobilizing citizens' voices into policy advocacy, and ensuring that citizen voices are captured in things that have been done. But the relationship between Oxfam and SEND has been an evolution, not a revolution. It's been 25 years, and out of the 25 years, I think I will associate myself to the last 15 years since I joined Oxfam, and have worked with many of the former colleagues that I'm seeing here today and up to date. But it's built on principles of partnership that looks at complementarity of our purpose and vision, which syncs very well with us. It's also built on mutual accountability and trust, which has been emphasized earlier on by previous speakers, that we take the relationship, we take accountability as something that is mutual, we trust each other in that relationship, which in a sense also lead us to respecting the autonomy of SEND as an institution, and not to dictate to SEND what we think they should do. The third one is also related to the principles that has been espoused by Auntie Esther, which is joint learning and innovation. The relationship between Oxfam and SEND Ghana has been a relationship of joint learning. We are committed to that joint learning, bringing practice back to practice, but also bringing practice to politics, to policy, trying to influence policy in a way that will inure to the benefit of the vulnerable and the marginalized in our country. I think on innovation, you have said it all. And for us at Oxfam, we are always open to innovation. We are open to fail, to learn from our failures, because we have a commitment to learning. And if you are committed to learn, it's not always about success. It's also about learning from your failures. And that is why anytime SEND Ghana and Oxfam sit together and think about any innovative idea, we don't shy away from saying, let's do it, let's go forward, let's fail and learn from it. If we succeed too, we learn together, and that will help us in the way that we do things. So many of the examples, the HIPIC Watch, the Gender Model Family, the participatory budget monitoring and tracking public expenditure, and so many of those things that have been mentioned. Oxfam is happy to have been part of this journey, and that is been very useful. 25 years of working together with Send Ghana. But I will not be able to conclude without mentioning some few things. That it's also been a critical friendship to look into each other's face and say, we don't think this is working. And for us to also listen to them and vary the way that things are done. And I believe that's also a very useful lesson for all of us who work in partnership with others, that we should be able to look into each other's face, eyeball to eyeball, and say, I am sorry this isn't working. We need to find means of addressing that. And of course, the journey has also brought us to a point that we do not longer consider ourselves as funders or donors to Send Ghana. We see them in Ghanaian parlance as our co-equals, right? We don't see them as sub-grantees who receive sub-grants from us. And I'm saying this because it got to the point that Oxfam was contemplating exiting Ghana, right? And Send Ghana was actually an organization that we were looking up to hand over the legacy of Oxfam to. So that should tell you that Send has actually grown to that extent and been a co-equal. So on this note, congratulations, Chief, and to all the Send staff and board members and everyone. And we look forward to more fruitful collaboration and partnership into the next 25 years and beyond. Congratulations.
Thank you so much, Oxfam. And when my attention was drawn to the fact that the relationship is beyond 25 years, I said, wow, Oxfam, that is really a relationship. And I think the account that you have narrated beyond 25 years, your experience in terms of working with that. Having said that, let us go online. Beyond 25 years, your experience. Seems I'm getting a signal. Is that correct? Having said that, let us. Do we have the director of Send Sierra Leone or Uncle? All right. Is that correct? So I'm informed that we have our big uncle, Mr. Lassana Kamara, who is the uncle of. So I'm informed that we have Siafa Kamara, who now has Ghana as his Kamara. So let's listen. Who is the uncle? So
good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good evening. Can you hear me? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good evening. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Good evening. I'm sorry for the poor quality of the sound and the picture. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? I'm sorry for the poor quality of the sound and the picture. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? All right, I guess. I'm sorry for the poor quality of the sound and the picture. Time is fast spent. All right, I guess. That's everyone. Time and the picture. Time is fast spent. My dream is I have to be everyone of CFI in the picture. I am very glad and very proud to be on this group to be the uncle of CFI. I am very glad and very proud to be on this group. I have to be the uncle of CFI. I am sorry if you can't see me. I am very glad with my heart. Very proud to be on this group. I have to be the uncle. I am sorry if you can't see me. I am very glad with my heart. I'm very proud to be on this group. I have to be the uncle. I am sorry if you can't see me at the beginning with my heart. I'm very proud to be on this group. I have to be the uncle. I am sorry if you can't see me at the beginning with my heart. I'm very proud to be on this group. I have to be the uncle. I am sorry if you can't see me at the beginning Right. Let me say the prayer. I am sorry if you can't speak at the beginning.
So as we work on our technology, we have some messages online. I'll quickly read them before the country director of Sierra Leone shares his message with us. This is we have some messages. Agori Kamara.
Again, because of technology, I must apologize. Let me say a prayer and say the short thing that I would like to say to everyone. Because of technology, I must apologize. In the name of God, let me say a prayer and say the short.
Of you, Siafa and Nancy, together with your staff. Your achievements have brought our community the hope that can inspire ordinary people to be responsible for themselves and those in their lives together with their greater community. Your fathers will be proud as we, your family, rejoices with you. Multicultural Community Family Services joins Send West Africa to celebrate this 25th anniversary of incredible services to West Africa. And we pray that God gives you greater capacity to meet and broaden your vision. Thank you. This is from Salem Chimsi. Long live Send Ghana. Kudos to management and staff for the hard work, dedication in the past 25 years. And this one is from Cadbeth. I salute Chief Siafa Kamara and all who have kept Send all these years. I cut my real development work experience with Send, establishing the advocacy program with Director Zan, Sebastian Tia, Harriet, Inco, and others. I am very proud of Send and its achievements. Long live Send. Cadbeth Kupia Baba. Thank you very much. We will take the message from the country director of Send Sierra Leone. Thank you.
ICT, do we have Send Sierra Leone? Good. Thank you. Whilst we prepare for that, I think after that we would have one from the CSO reps, if we do, and then from those of us old staff that are here, I can see Clara. Clara, you were our leader. If you can step on to still wear your leadership mantle and do a solidarity for us. So whilst we are still looking for Send Sierra Leone Director, Clara, you can come forward and give us a solidarity message on our behalf. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John. I think when I got here, one thing that excited me was the number of past staff who came today to celebrate with Send. And that is a demonstration of something because, I mean, as human as we are, if a place or somebody doesn't treat you well, you would never look back, let alone to go and celebrate with that person or organization. And so the numbers, so I think we should get out for people to see us. We are quite a good number of staff here today. It shows the kind of relationship we had with our employer in the past. I, for one, was with Send for almost 6 years. And Send has contributed so much to who I am today. By the way, I'm Clara Watson, and I work for the UK Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Organization, formerly DFID. And I always tell people proudly that it was experience at Send that prepared me for what I'm doing today. But it wasn't just the exposure to the development work, but also it was internal policy. When you hear about gender model family, it wasn't just applied to our project principals and beneficiaries, but it was applied internally. SEND started giving paternity leave in Ghana when the word paternity was not even known. Flexible working environment. Until COVID hit, most of us, the word working from home was alien to us. But I can tell you that when I had my first child, as the head of program, I was allowed to work from home for 8 months. Way back in 2013. And so they practice what they preach. Basically, that's what I wanted to say. On this day, we want to say thank you so much to Siafa and the team. Siafa has been everything, and he continues to be everything that we need as a mentor and as a father. And I am very confident that SEND will go far, and we will all be here to celebrate 50th anniversary. So on behalf of everybody, we wish you the very best. Continue to build on the foundation that some of us also supported to lay. And we know that together with all our stakeholders, SEND will continue to make significant impact in Ghana. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Harriet. This is amazing. You have made the point. You have really made the point. In SEND, if I don't mention that, people will say, hey, is John here? You have made the point, and the point looks sharp. It looks sharp. I remember when I used to ride a motor in the whole of northern Ghana.
The whole of northern Ghana?
Yes, the whole of northern Ghana. For SEND Ghana. And I think in my leadership series in the media, when I was made country director, when I mentioned it, it threw many people in the country to shock. For SEND Ghana. How can you ride a motor? And I think in my I can take a motor from Tamale, go to Sandima and sleep, and then the following day I go to shock. What how can you ride a motor? I was talking about, which is the HIPIC watch for citizens watch monitoring, and then continue to Laura and sleep. The following day I come and do what I go to Bola and sleep. The HIPIC watch is under the whole of citizens watch monitoring. Thank you very much. Let us move forward. So many stories, but we need to move forward. Let us listen to the. Thank you very much. Let us move forward. So many stories. Country director, you have the floor. Let us listen.
25 years of SEND Ghana, and recognizing the impact that they have made in Ghana. But they also played a very critical role towards the formation of SEND Sierra Leone. Since 2008, we have worked here in Sierra Leone. We have supported livelihood empowerment of women. We have supported women's political participation in governance. We have also supported gender transformative practices. And I can say today, we operate in 16 districts, that is almost all the districts in Sierra Leone, with livelihood activities, wash intervention, education activities, and transformative gender practices that we have been having as our program here in Sierra Leone. We want to also follow the same footsteps as SEND Ghana did, because we are part of the West African body, and we would like to continue to make impact wherever we operate here in Sierra Leone. But to also share in some of the successes that SEND Ghana has attained. As an organization, we have made very impactful development activities here in Sierra Leone. We can boast of the various women groups that we have formed in Sierra Leone, starting with the Kailahu Women in Governance Network. And today, the network has a membership of over 36,000 women across 16 districts in Sierra Leone, something that just started in Kailahu. We have been able to form over 10 community cooperative credit unions, where more than 30,000 people benefited from access to financial services. We continue to promote the empowerment of women, where we promote women's education. And because of our ambition to make sure that women are highly educated, not just in the social sciences, not just in other disciplines, but in the science and technology sector, we have been able to support the establishment of a modern, high-quality science school for girls here in Kenema district. As I speak, there are many girls, more than 200 girls in that school that are learning science and technology, and the creativity that they are already exhibiting is going to go a long way to support the development of Sierra Leone. Our biggest impact that we have created in Sierra Leone is the passage of the Gender Equality and Women's Empowerment Act, which is now a law guaranteeing 30% of women's representation in the national parliament, 30% of women's representation in all spheres of government-supported institutions. And that is a big achievement. SEN played a greater role in making sure that that law is existing today. Because of the large number of women that we have worked across the 16 districts, they played a greater role in terms of advocacy, and we supported and in various platforms, advocacy activities, engagement, massive sensitization activities that we conducted across the country. But we have also made sure that we were part of the major committee that was advocating for the passage of the law. Today, I can say the Parliament of Sierra Leone is made up of 28% of women, which is a big progress from the last time that we held elections here in Sierra Leone. In all the districts that we have worked, we have achieved 30% of women's representation. And in 2 of our districts, we have been able to achieve 40% of women's representation, which is the highest in Sierra Leone in any district. Because in all the other districts, they either have between 28 to 30. But we have achieved the 30% in all the districts that we have worked. And we have also made history by ensuring that we have 40% of women's representation at the local councils in 2 of our districts. For the first time in the history of Sierra Leone, 2 of the youngest female MPs that were elected, they are from the Young Women in Governance Network that has been created by SEN Sierra Leone. And so, as we congratulate SEN Ghana for attaining 25 years, we are very much excited about these achievements, and we want to be able to make sure that we also achieve a lot when we get to 25 years. But in a few years, 10 more years to come, we will be celebrating our 25 years. We hope that we will have the same level of impact or more impact to create, just as SEN Ghana did. But in the future, we want to see a West African body, as SEN West Africa is. What we want to see is to be able to see a community, not just Sierra Leone, not just Ghana, not just Liberia, but we want to see a community, the West African community, that is responsible and that is also responsive to the needs of citizens. And that is what we want to continue to do. We would like to be able to continue to improve on our leadership, improve on our management structures, improve on our capacity to continue to be the leading NGO in West Africa that does innovative, creative things that support the development of communities. But we also want SEN as a West African body to be able to promote critical consciousness among citizens, to ensure that citizens are able to be aware of some of the things that they can do on their own, to be able to solve their own problems. Because the dependency syndrome is still very high in West Africa. And the only way to be able to solve that is if we're able to educate citizens to understand the value that they have in themselves, the resources that they have in their environment, and how they can be able to mobilize that to support their own development. But we also want to be able to continue to promote some of our accountability practices. Because if there is good governance, there is transparency, and there is effective use of resources, we will have improved governance. And some of the issues that we are dealing with will reduce. So we will send Ghana happy 25th anniversary, but we are also yearning, working and learning. And in the next 25 years, we will want to have a stronger Send West Africa. Thank you very much.
Happy anniversary, Send Ghana. You are 25 years old. It is a journey of great achievements too. You have done very well over the years, supporting ordinary people in communities and making a difference in their lives. You have also supported institutions to perform better, governance institutions, health institutions, district assemblies. You have unit committees. You supported them to perform better and contributing to Ghana's development.
I've enjoyed working for SEND, and I would say that SEND has made very significant strides in the development of the rural people in the Eastern Corridor. I believe strongly that SEND has already started leaving a legacy in the area of credit unionism in the Eastern Corridor, where there are so many testimonies as to how their lives have changed with the intervention of credit unionism.
What I see as very, very important is the integrity, the commitment, and then love for work, and also choosing areas that nobody wants to be there, in terms of remote areas where we are touching the lives of so many people, changing lives, preaching gender, increasing women leadership positions in rural areas, way into health areas where people are less fortunate, and then influencing how people should behave and how people should live harmoniously among people.
In fact, we cannot describe it, because the inmate need help, but the government alone cannot do it. So your coming here is a blessing to the stations, that is Salaga local prison. We appreciate it, and we pray that it will be the first, but it will continue. Anytime you are doing something like this, you remember Salaga local prison. So may the good Lord bless you a lot. This will go a long way to help train the inmate, so that they may not go and then come back because they don't have any skill. But with the machines, I think you put to a good use, so that next time when you pay visit, you will see the result. May the Lord bless you.
Since they started operation. And if you go to somewhere, especially East Gonja, where they worked tediously on promoting women's entrepreneurship, promoting the gender model families, particularly, they've changed a lot of the way people think communities, especially in the rural areas, about gender roles.
Organization that has shown a lot of success in enabling the otherwise excluded in governance and security to hold duty bearers responsible and accountable for the rights that they are supposed to be entitled to from those duty bearers.
And to encourage you that even though things are looking tighter this time, this is the time for you to perform better. Get together, work together as you've always done, and there is no hard work that is not paid. You have done very well. Congratulations.
If you can hear us, thank you so much for. And this takes us into having said so, we may an award ceremony. If you can hear us, when we recognizing. And this takes us into having said so, the hard work. And one of the, if you can hear us, oldest staff, this takes us of St. Ghana, having said so, the hard work. And so, pleasure is mine to invite the board chairperson, oldest staff, Madam Janet Adama Mohammed, to lead us through this. And so, pleasure is mine to invite the oldest staff, Madam Janet Adama Mohammed.
I am privileged, and I'm using that as a true reflection of how I feel about this award. I'm really privileged to know, and I'm using the father of the house as I call reflection of how I feel about this award. He's been there at all times. He's not just the father of the house to see to the safety of people. He's been there at all times, but he cares. Not just the father of the house who knows everyone, the safety who comes in his silent mode. He gives you a smile, and it means a lot. If you come and he's not there, then you look around and you are looking for that smile. It is an infectious smile, and it just gives you a lot of energy. Then you look around, and the father of the house is a counselor to several staff, and I mean a true counselor. So the father of the house has been there from the beginning to date, and he continues to be there. I'm so glad that we have the opportunity to honor him. He has been there. Mark Kofibo to date, please.
support the board of Sen Ghana, Sen West Africa, and then especially to my CEO, the board of Sen Ghana, Sen West Africa, and the entire staff of Sen Ghana. To my CEO, the board of this Sen Ghana, and I will say, may God bless all of them.
Thank you so much, Macbo. Thank you. Thank you so much. Mark, you deserve this honor. And all of us here stand with the board chair to appreciate and recognize your hard work, your loyalty, your dedication and devotion to duty. Thank you so much, Mark. All right, recognize. All right, if that's something, let's clap on us. Loyalty, the dedication and devotion to duty. Thank you. All right, that's a good one. All right, thank you so much. I think that at this point, Harriet, time has fast spent. All right, so we're moving to the closing phases of this meeting. At this point, one, it's important for us to take the closing phases of this meeting, celebrating the award at the back. One, so we take our closing remarks from the chairperson who has so generously been taking us and driving taking us the driver's seat, taking us through the successful journey. And then from there, they will driving Harriet will take us through that one. And then we will have some shots. Then from there, and then there's a cocktail. Driving Harriet will take us through that one. And then thank you very much. Then jump there. And then there's a cocktail. Driving Harriet will take us through that one.
Thank you very much to all of you. Good evening again. When I started, I mentioned names of somebody who mentored us right from the early days in Kumasi. When I started, I mentioned Dr. Otibuati, I mentioned Sia Francis. Now I can see Tony right from the early days here. I am sure some of us, the gratitude that we owe these people. Now I can see Tony Sia Francis is something that you cannot put in a ship. And the ship still being at the surface of the sea, it will definitely sink. He told us a lot of lessons. And for me, I say it everywhere. My real schooling, real leadership and management skill emanated from those days at the YCS Center and the Rosary Center. My real schooling, and it took us through this whole process, becoming the pioneers in the field, blazers at the front of the CSO front. When there was a push of a lot of these international issues, blazers focusing on other areas, because those were the days where there were a lot of conflict in Africa. So they prioritized that, but they immediately filled the space that they left behind. Since they were celebrating is one of these icons of institution that took up the mantle and shaped this country out of these times of poverty, of difficulties, and of inequalities. Let me say that what we heard here today indicates that it's not just one civil society organization doing something, but it's an institution. I listened to Auntie Esther, and I asked myself, if we should assess many of these government institutions that have run in the span of 70 to 60 years, they'll be able to tell stories like this. Influencing policy, influencing institutions, creating institutions, influencing the capacity of these institutions and individuals, the relationship they were able to set across from government through the private sector, civil society, to communities in the traditional sector. And he's planning all these areas. When it comes to implementation, virtually, they covered all the 16 SDOs before they were even set up. Issues of poverty running all the way to human rights throughout the 70s. And I'm not surprised. He is the co-chair of the SDG Civil Society, running all the way to human rights. Implemented all. Most especially, something that we are still struggling to institute as a country, monitoring, evaluation, and accountability. He's doing it right there at the community level, and bringing it to a challenge to us, national institutions, how we can take this lesson, implement and sustain it. This is bringing it to a challenge mouthful, to say the least. It's very encouraging for many of us here. 25 years, and with this accomplishment listed today, shows that how very encouraging for many of us. If there's any example that they portray to the world, the first to ask them that we can do it. Unfortunately, at the other side of it, inequality is still increasing, but our measure first, it means that we still have a lot of work to do. Unfortunately, at the other side, very sure that SEND will be there, not to carry the CSO, but to bring it and carry government along. Very public institution which are strong to do the little to carry the CS. That is even expected. Bring it and carry government of the yardstick with the very public institution which is quite strong to do the little. I congratulate all of you for staying on and listening to this one. So I just, anytime I'm there, I become a student. And so I've learned a lot in addition to whatever I've received from there. Anytime I'm there, I want to become a student. That this has also been appreciated by the people who are here in this room. And I'm sure at the end of the day, it's not just a gain for Ghana, it is for Liberia, it is for Sierra Leone. And as we've indicated, we would like to see it shine in the whole of West Africa. And not just a gain for Ghana. Let me tell you something. In 2020, we went to ISDG reporting, the high-level political forum in New York. And everybody was wondering, I think it's 2019, how Ghana was able to establish that net, bringing along the civil society, the private sector, the traditional sector, the youth, the women, the people with disabilities, all to the forum and presenting a report which is a real representation of what is happening to the SDGs and not a praise song for government. They were sending a report, and it's all times to something that we learn from the network of people coming together in order to accomplish a defined task. And so the vision is beyond this, not just an institution. It is an influence over a whole country, if not the whole region. So the vision, all of you gathered here, you supported me to really maneuver through time to bring us to this thing. I am sure we definitely want to hear a word from Kamara himself, CFI himself, and then we can say a video. Thank you very much. Then we can say a video. Then we can say a video. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Okay, all protocol observed. We decided 5 years rate our anniversary in 2 parts. The first thing we did was we said we want to have solidarity with the poor. So we actually dedicated this anniversary to the poor. On the 8th of August, we went to a children's home. The chief is here. From the New Life Nungwa Children's Home. I was so touched by his story. So let me just enjoy myself and tell you the story. And I'll tell you the 3 places we visit, because they are all unique. You see, he's a chief. His father was a chief. And his father had more than 30 children that he supported. So he said, I will repeat the same thing, but I will do it differently. So after he finished school, he came back to Ghana. He went to the social welfare department, went to the police. If there are children who do not have place to sleep, I am there. And for almost 20 years or more, that is what he has been doing. He doesn't allow people to take them, adopt them. We went there, now there are 92 children. Some he has taken from toddler, he's sending them to school, to university. Some have no father, only he and his wife. Then in Tamale, all of us who have worked in Tamale will know about Dr. Abdullah, who dedicated his life to care for those who are mentally challenged. He provided medical care for them. He also gave them hot meal every day. We all know Dr. Abdullah, unfortunately, went too fast, too young. But he left his wife with the instruction to continue the journey and never to make it into an NGO, but to just do it. And the wife has taken that seriously. So for the last 7 years, since the death of her husband, every day, more than 200 mentally deranged people are fed hot meal every day. Okay? So we went there. Then in Saraga, there's a prison there of all men. They just decided that they want to give the prisoners some skills. They renovated the place, but they had nothing in it. Bash and his team decided that we'll help you. So what we did was we gave each office a certain amount, and they chose, but it had to be with the poor people right in your neighborhood. Because that's what we do in development. We're helping team poverty is over there, but they are right here with us. So that was the first phase. The second phase of the celebration is what we are experiencing today, was to have this lecture, and Esther agreed to help us tell our story. And I think she has told our story. And so, let me thank all the staff of SEN, first of all, with whom this work would not have been possible. You can see the SEN family here. And when I say staff of SEN, I'm not talking about those who are there now. I'm talking about all of those who have worked for SEN. How many organizations in this country can have this gathering of staff? Some have left for 7 years, 10 years. They are now important people in their own right. But once they got that call from SEN, some of them started looking for their shirt to wear. So SEN has become like a military institution. When you are a soldier, you are always a soldier. So I want to thank all the staff, and I'm doing so from my heart. I've lived in this country since 1980 as a Liberian. And I always tell my family that I'm privileged to work with nice Ghanaians. And I want to repeat that, meaning I know they are also bad Ghanaians. That I've been privileged to work with nice Ghanaians. Many of them young will be able to make a difference. So we are celebrating what we've all done together. So my first gratitude goes to all of you. We also want to thank our donors, Oxfam in particular. You know, I'd like to tell you a little story. Amabe Malajane is here. When we called the first meeting, right there at the Prison Council guest house, when I said that we were going to monitor government, nobody believed it. You want to put us in trouble. I said, but every year I have to go for my resident permit. So how can I do something? How can we monitor government, hold government accountable? You know, but that was the beginning of the hippie watch. And we did it. Nobody went to prison anyway. And that's the work we're talking about today. And I say that to emphasize one thing about SEN, which Esther has emphasized, that we believe in growing citizenship. When you have a republic, it rests on the citizens. What we have in Ghana today, in Africa, citizenship remains weak. we don't maximize ourselves as citizens. And that's why the core of the work that we've done in Sen over the years, whether it's livelihood, talking about downward accountability. Our downward is a serious business. We actually put all the accounts we gave to us on a notice board. My staff go on radio station and say, this is the expenditure we did in your district. This is the money we got from the donor. Come and ask our question. Sometimes they don't even come. Hey, how can you ask them? It's about all the empowerment. So for us, citizenship is important, and I want to thank the citizens of Ghana who have worked with us in the communities. You may not be here, but it's the work that we have done together in those communities that we are celebrating here today. Without you, we would not be standing here. Without the good citizens, the poor, the weak, whatever, we will not be standing here. And we'll continue to work with you, as many people have already pledged that for the next 25 years. I thank God I'll be around to see the next 25 years or so. I see some of our partners who have been here with us. I see Mr. Igala here. They've been our auditors for quite some time, and we're very grateful to their council for the work that they've done together with us. In saying we believe in walking the talk. When I work with civil society, I get angry. We lambast government, but our accountability mechanisms are weak. In saying we try our best to make sure that there's no donor who has worked with us who can complain that we are not accountable. We may be weak in other things, we may find weaknesses, but once our attention is drawn to it, we take active steps. And I think that's one of the reasons for our resilience. So I want to thank all our donors. I want to thank all of our staff. I want to thank all of our partners. I see, after I already mentioned the chief, we thank you very much for coming. We appreciate you and the work that you do. We'll continue to be part of it. I've already thanked my mentor, Charles Oti-Poatin. He can tell you how I looked in 1973 when I was in high school. He came and he taught us what we call see, judge, and act. See, judge, see, when you see a social problem, what do you do about it? We are Christian, so we judge it. We don't judge it by our own self. We go back to what our Bible teaches us about honesty, about transparency, about accountability. That's what you are seeing in Sen. So a lot of it was planted in my head in 1973 by him. And so I'm grateful that he come today to see what the seed that he sowed, whether it's bearing fruit. I leave that judgment to him. Lastly, let me thank, not lastly, because I have to thank our guests of honor for honoring our invitation at the last meeting, that kind of solidarity that we have with the National Development Planning Commission. So we are very grateful. My last thanks go to Harriet and the team that put this together. And I really want to thank them for honoring Mark. Mark and myself, I didn't even know. The least, if you can honor the least among you, that is the spirit of the work that we do in Sen. A chain is as strong as its weakest point. So if we can honor the person who sits at the door, is bitten by a mosquito, yet he has to smile. If we want hot water, he's the one. If we use the toilet, many of us don't clean the place. He has to go and clean the place. He does it with a smile. So that convinces me that the seed that we are sowing in Sen, to always honor the poor, to work for them, to make their life better. By making their life and their opportunities better, we are also making ours better. For me, as a Christian, as a person, that's what I also believe in. I didn't know, by the way, let me tell you how. They didn't even inform the team. But they just knew that's what I would like. That on this day we honor Mark. So I want to thank you, Harriet. And then our MC, John, who traveled. John is right, though. You know, we are here as project officer for Happy World. We didn't want staff. Managing the 3 northern countries as the project officer. So he's not talking joke. You see, that's the way we work in Sen. So I want to thank all of you for coming. Let's go chair. You see, since if you want a good public speaker, you get the chair for Saint Sierra Leone, Mrs. Lucy Gondo. She's a powerhouse. I don't need to talk about our chair here. So in all of same work we do again, having our chair being, for me, being gender activist, keep us on our toes to make sure that we can walk the talk. I want to thank them for all the support that they've given to the implementation team, helping us to make sure that our policies remain consistent with our vision and with our mission. Many organizations say one thing, but when you look at their activities, it's different. So my agenda, the board, and everybody who serves in that capacity and who is here and who is listening to us, thank you very much for making the 25 years possible. May all of us live to see the next 25 years. Thank you.
All right, let's clap to that. Let's clap. Thank you. I believe in the saying that the
John.
glory. All right, go ahead.
Yeah. You know, my name is Hiehua. My uncle didn't have time to explain to you. Hiehua means someone who walks and talks. So talking is what I was born to do. It never ends. You know, I forgot to mention that I'm very happy that the pastor of my church came and I stayed here throughout. So I want to acknowledge that.
Thank you so much. All right, Harriet. We just take the last one and I submit to you. Please, do we have our pastor to do the closing prayer? Pastor Kofi Akwa. Thank you once again. We are most grateful.
I know we are all tired or hungry, but before we pray, I just want you to know that I'm also part of SEND. Technically, I was in Sierra Leone to do some work after the Ebola, not to preach. I have another life as a photojournalist, so I've done a lot of work. I can see you, Oxfam, yes. And I was really, really impressed by the quality of work. In church, one of our biggest debates is what is secular and what is sacred. I can tell you for a fact, anything you do for the poor is sacred. So your work is church work. Let's pray. Father, we thank you for your great faithfulness. We thank you that we could celebrate today. 25 years is a big deal. And this has happened because of your goodness and your grace. We thank you for everybody who over the 25 years has contributed to this vision, to every donor who's given money towards it, to every employee, to any benefactor. Father, we pray that you bless them wherever they are. Bless them with your goodness and with your mercy. And we pray that you take them into a greater future. Help them. Give them every help they need. Every help SEND needs. Father, send it to them. Glorify yourself through them and in them, so that this world can be a better place for the poor and the vulnerable. We thank you, Lord, for this evening. We'll keep celebrating because you've been good to us. We are thankful. Thank you, Lord, for your mercies. In Jesus' precious name have we prayed. Amen. God bless you all.
God bless you all for coming. We will take some photos quickly, and then we have cocktail out here. Pass by, have a drink or a bite, and then we say bye-bye. So the high table will remain seated. Please move the tables. I'll call out groups and names, and then we stand behind them. They will remain seated, and we will take some photos. So I'll quickly call on our traditional rulers and religious leaders. If they are here, they will be the first to take their photos with the high table. Please kindly move the table. Send staff outside, please come in and help us do this. After that, if we still have government functionaries and institutions here, they will be the next to take the photo. And then next on the list will be our funding partners. So our traditional rulers, if we have a religious leaders here, they would. Can we have 2 chairs, please, for our traditional rulers? I think it's okay. It's okay now. It's okay. It's only 2. It's okay. Please don't go, because I'm going to call all of you to come. Government functionaries, development partners, old staff, please don't go, because I'm going to call all of you to come. If we have our media, government functionaries, journalists here, development partners, old staff, please don't go. And then all special friends, if we have our media, government functionaries here, development partners, supported institutions, and then
supporting better governance institutions, health institutions, district assembly, process support of unit committees, supported them to perform better and contributing to Ghana's business success.
Working for SEND, and I would say that
please join them.
Very significant strides by developments of the rural people and the system corridor. I believe strongly that SEND has already established a legacy of rural people in the area of pending uniform in the Eastern corridor, where there are so many testimonies of how the lives have changed.
And then civil society will follow. Our funding partners,
and then love for work. And also choosing areas that nobody wants to be there in terms of remote areas where we are touching the lives of so many people, changing lives in areas that reaching gender there, increasing women leadership positions in rural areas, in the lives of way into health areas where people are less fortunate there, and then influencing health in rural areas, life way into health areas.
But we cannot describe it because the image needs help, but the government alone cannot do it. So your coming here is a present to the stations, that is Salaga local prison.
Thank you very much.
We appreciate it, and we pray that it will be the first, but it will continue. Anytime you are doing something like this, you remember Salaga local prison. So may the good Lord bless you a lot. This will go a long way to help you achieve the image, so that you may not go and come back. So because they don't have any skill, but if machines are changing, so that next time when you pay visit, you see they don't have any skill, they don't have machines.
Please come and join.
Have been relented on that vision since the we set operation. And if you go to our especially East Gonja, where they started with they went studiously promoting women, promoting the gender model families. I think where they've changed a lot of the way people think, communities, especially in rural areas, about gender roles,
organization that has talked a lot of success in enabling
gender
all staff be getting ready.
otherwise of countries.
All former staff of St. Ghana be getting ready.
Enabling to hold
all staff be getting ready.
duty bearers
All former staff of St. Ghana be getting ready.
enabling for the rise that they are supposed to be advocating.
All staff be getting ready. All former staff of St. Ghana
for the rise that
Thank you very much. Former staff of SEN, please come to the podium. When we are done, all the journalists in the room, please come and take it. Thank you very much. Former staff of SEN, please come to the podium. All former staff, please come and take it.
So I just want to appreciate you and to encourage you that even though things are looking tight at this time, this is the time for you to perform at this better. To get together, work together as things are starting tight. There is no hard work that is needed as better. You have done very get together, work together as things.
Right. No, I'm not fine. Right.
As we celebrate 25 years of St. Ghana and recognizing the impact that they have made in Ghana, but they also played a very critical role towards the formation of Sierra Leone. And since 2008, we have worked here in Sierra Leone. We have supported the livelihood empowerment of women. We have supported women's political participation in governance. We have also supported gender transformative practices. And I can say today, we operate in 16 districts. That is almost all the districts in Syria, with livelihood activities, wash intervention, education activities, and transformative gender practices that we have been having as our program here in Syria. We want to also follow the same footsteps as St. Ghana, because we are part of the West African model, and we would like to continue to make impact wherever we operate here at St. Ghana. But to also share in some of the successes that St. Ghana is achieving. As an organization, we have made very impactful development activities here in Syria. We can boast of various women groups that we have formed in Syria, starting with women in governance network. And today, the network has a membership of over 36,000 women across 16 districts in Syria. Something that just started in Thailand. We have been able to form over 10 community cooperative credit unions, where more than 30,000 people benefited from access to financial services. We continue to promote the empowerment of women, where we promote women's education, and because of our ambition to make sure that women are highly educated, not just in social sciences, not just in other disciplines, but in the science and technology sector, we have been able to support the establishment of a modern, high-quality science school for girls here in Kenema District. As I speak, there are many girls, more than 200 girls, in that school, science and learning, science and technology, and the creativity that they are already exhibiting is going to go a long way to support the development of Sierra Leone. Our biggest impact that we have created in Sierra Leone is the passage of the Gender Equality and Women's Empowerment Act, which is now a law guaranteeing 30% of women's representation in the national parliament, 30% of women's representation in all spheres of government-supported institutions, and that is a big achievement. 30% played a greater role in making sure that that law is existing today. Because of the large number of women that we have worked across the Sierra district, they played a greater role in justice advocacy, and we supported and in various platforms, advocacy activities, engagement, and massive sensitization activities that we conducted across the country. But we have also made sure that we were part of the major committee that was advocating for the passage of the law. Today, I can say the Parliament of Sierra Leone is made up of 78% of women, which is a big progress from the last time that we held elections here in Sierra Leone. In all the districts that we have, we have achieved 30% of women's representation. And in 2 of our districts, we have been able to achieve 40% of women's representation, which is the highest in Sierra Leone in any district. Because in all the other districts, they either have between 28 to 30. But we have achieved 30% in all the districts that we have worked. We have also made this by ensuring that we have 40% of women's representation in local council in all 2 of our districts. For the first time in the history of Sierra Leone, 2 of the youngest female MPs that were elected from the Young Women in Governance Network that has been created by Sierra Leone. And so, as we congratulate the Young Women in Governance Network, we are very much excited about this achievement, and we want to be able to make sure that we also achieve a lot when we get to 25 years. But in a few years, 10 more years to come, we will be celebrating our 25 years. We hope that we will have the same level of impact or more impact to create, just as Sen Ghana did. But in the future, we want to see a West African body, as Central West Africa is. What we want to see is to be able to see a community, not just Sierra Leone, not just Ghana, not just Liberia, but we want to see a community, a West African community, that is responsible and that is also responsive to the needs of citizens. And that is what we want to continue to do. We would like to be able to continue to improve on our leadership.